Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Chacon. Road fatalities on U.S. highways have spiked this year. More than 20,000 people have died in motor vehicle crashes in the first half of this year, the highest 6-month total since 2006. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says speeding and lack of seatbelt use caused most of these deaths. Here in Los Angeles, traffic fatalities also rose to 257 over the last year, according to the news site Crosstown LA. Some of these fatalities happen along the roads. Reseda Boulevard, always a busy street. Over the last decade, there has been 64 severe and fatal collisions on this section of Reseda Boulevard, according to the city's transportation department. In 2015, Mayor Eric Garcetti created the Vision Zero program to keep LA streets safe and reduce the number of car deaths. The program aims to upgrade traffic signals, add protected bicycle lanes, and upgrade crosswalks with flashing beacons. Here at Parthenia and Reseda Boulevard, they added bicycle lanes and speeding monitors as part of their program. Today on CSUN On Point, we look at current state of roadway safety in LA County and ask what can be done to reduce the number of collisions and deaths on the roads. On Point Callie Raglin has more.
Thank you, Kimmy, and welcome to On Point. Today we have Lauren Ballard, who's a transportation planner at LA Department of Transportation and Vision Zero. We have Matthew Dubiel, who's a senior civil engineer at LA County Public Works. Lili Trujillo, who's the founder of Street Racing Kills. And finally, Damian Kevitt, who's the executive director at Streets Are For Everyone. Thank you everyone for being with us today. So road fatalities on U.S. highways have spiked this year, and more than 20,000 people died in vehicle crashes in just 6 months, which is the highest 6-month total since 2006. So Lauren, you're with Department of Transportation with LA. What do you think is causing this spike?
Thank you. The research shows that both in 2020 and 2021, drivers have engaged in riskier behaviors on the road, and that includes speeding, driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and not wearing seatbelts. So those are national trends, and we're also seeing those locally reflected in our local data. And we're also seeing an increase in crashes that are involving a single driver and a fixed object, so something like a tree or a parked vehicle.
Okay.
Back in 2020, with the pandemic and the safer at home orders, we saw a decrease in vehicle miles traveled. So that meant overall we were collectively driving less. And so our roads were more open. And the theory is that back in 2020, roads, because they were so much less trafficked, that there was more room for people to pick up speed. And that a lot of the increase in 2020 was related to those open roads. But it doesn't really track for 2021 because we've seen cars return to the road as people are returning to work and returning to their usual activities. And so our roads are nearly at pre-pandemic levels of traffic. And so that doesn't necessarily track for 2021. And so there are, different people looking into this. And some of the theories are that these unsafe driving habits are really a reflection of the isolation and kind of loneliness and depression that is related to the pandemic. And so, I think the jury's still out exactly on why, but we do know what types of crashes are increasing, and those are those high-speed crashes, DUI crashes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Matthew, can you tell me about the programs that LA Public Works are doing, like maybe the neighborhood traffic program or the traffic congestion relief program to improve roadway safety?
Yes, actually our County of Los Angeles Board of Supervisors adopted our Vision Zero plan, which is directly related to traffic safety, last summer in August of 2020. And so what that is, and LA City, our fellow panelist here, also has a Vision Zero plan as well. But what Vision Zero is it's really a program that's aimed at reducing traffic fatalities down to zero and eliminating them. And so the action plan was adopted in August of 2020, and we have been off and running and trying to accommodate that goal and implement infrastructure and educational programs to enhance traffic safety on unincorporated county roadways.
What kind of infrastructure changes are you making?
So a number of things. It all depends on what the data is showing us. Vision Zero is strictly a data-driven initiative. What the data is showing us, at least in the unincorporated county areas, and I suspect that it's the same in other areas as well, is that speeding is a main cause of the traffic collisions that we're seeing. And so a lot of our infrastructure and programs that are planned and that have gone in are aimed at that. So we do different types of traffic calming. We put in curb bulb outs, which essentially tighten the intersection up and narrow the roadway down to give that effect of a calmer traffic traveled roadway. Other things that can help, roundabouts, traffic signal improvements, putting in leading pedestrian intervals is what they call them, where a pedestrian gets a head start, so to speak, to cross the road that allows them to become more visible to a driver to reduce that risk of a collision happening between a vehicle and a pedestrian. So there are a number of things that LA County Public Works is doing, and we have about 120 unincorporated Los Angeles County communities that we service, and about 3,300 centerline miles of roadway. So we span all the way down from our urban areas down in the LA Basin up into the Antelope Valley and the more rural areas. So we know that it's not one size fits all as far as the solutions, but they are all related in some manner, and speed is definitely one of those things that we see as being a challenge across the county.
So Lauren, I know LA Department of Transportation also has a Vision Zero program. So is that similar to what Matthews is?
Vision Zero is really a citywide initiative in the city of Los Angeles. So each of the city departments that play a role in the safety of a street come to the table and work to make the street safer. And so in Los Angeles, we defined a high injury network. So that's a small subset of city streets where we see the most crashes that are killing and severely injuring people walking and biking. Those are our most vulnerable road users. And then we go through and, street by street, look to redesign the street in order to improve safety outcomes on the street, and work with community partners, such as those that you have on the call today, and we look forward to hearing from in a bit, to implement safety improvements and make sure that those safety improvements are appropriate for the community, and that they are going to be achieving the needed safety benefits. So similar, certainly, to LA County. There's a whole host of traffic calming measures that we use.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we're going to take a look at a clip from the Outreach and Community Relations Director of Street Racing Kills.
I am passionate about roadway safety because I lost my 23-year-old niece, Bethany Holguin, on May 11th, 2019, after two young men decided to engage in an illegal street racing contest. Not only did Bethany lose her life that night, but her little brother was left in critical condition. Although it's difficult for me to share my family's story, this crash was 100% preventable. I am here today to keep my promise to Bethany and to raise awareness about the dangers of illegal street racing and traffic safety among the youth.
So, Lili, you're with also Street Racing Kills. So, in your experience, is there anything that can be done to combat illegal street racing?
Oh yeah, there's a lot that we can do, and that I think we're all already doing. The main thing is, I believe in education. I believe in starting from scratch among the youth. You start to plant that seed on these kids about what street racing is, what reckless driving is. Education is a must. Bills. There's some bills that have come into effect through the pandemic, right? Through when everything just went out of control. with people racing and doing sideshows and takeovers. It just and unfortunately it didn't stop. And as this grew, so did my organization. So we had to create even more programs. So yes, I would leave more programs, more bills, uh, more advocates, as we all are here right now together, right? All those advocates are trying to do something about it as well as public officials as well.
Okay, thank you. What impact have you seen from your organization on roadway safety?
I've seen a lot of impact, to be honest with you. Every time by creating so many programs that we have created regarding the dangers of illegal street racing and reckless driving, we have an impact on the youth. Like I said, as we plant that seed in them and seeing the change, when they see something, when they know about the problem and they know what to do to protect themselves or not to do it, the consequences of it. We also have a reckless driving intervention program where we mentor those who have already been cited, those already have got their car impounded, and I believe that has really helped in giving me with people that have not killed anyone yet or are not in jail yet, or they didn't hurt themselves either, to give them a chance to continue. I've seen a lot of impact also because of other people that had suffered, because of other families that have experienced a death due to illegal street racing or a sideshow. I've seen AB3 bill that was just created and just passed by Council Member Vince Fong, which they will take your license away now, even if you just got expectating, and even if you just at a sideshow, even if you're just speeding, you will get your license taken away now. So I have seen a good impact by also supporting bills as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we're going to listen to a Pasadena man describe how he tragically lost his wife to roadway violence.
My wife of 5.5 years, Lu Yang, age 33, was killed while on her morning jog at the intersection of San Pasqual and Allen in Pasadena by a speeding BMW, hitting my wife and killing her instantly. The cause of death was blunt head trauma. I remembered my wife's last word during our Thanksgiving dinner the night before. She said, "I am thankful for this year. It has been relatively smooth sailing. Next year will also be a great year." Little did we expect that it was going to be her last meal. The sudden loss of my wife is utterly devastating. I wanted to commit suicide several times. Think twice before speeding. You might not treasure your life as much, but do not ruin other people's life.
So, Damian, your organization, Streets Are For Everyone, recognizes that as much as 40 to 50% of traffic-caused fatalities are that of pedestrians and bicyclists. What do you think Los Angeles can do to get this number down and prevent another tragedy like this?
Wow, that is, one of those $1 million questions which Lauren and many other people are working on every day. The last stats that I have are about 44% of those serious injuries and fatalities are pedestrians and cyclists. And really you have to look at that in relation to how many people are using the roads who are pedestrians and cyclists. And it's roughly 19%, and that figure is a few years old, but it's about the same there, 19-20%. The people in the county of Los Angeles are pedestrians or cyclists. So you've got a huge disparity, and that makes sense considering the fact that pedestrians and cyclists don't have steel cages. They don't have airbags around them to protect them if they get hit. If they get hit, even if they are in the right and the car is 100% in the wrong, they're going to lose every time. So there needs to be a lot more work in terms of prioritizing a safer system of roadways for pedestrians and cyclists. Just realize most roads, especially from the 60s that are built in the 60s and the 70s and the 50s, they're built from a viewpoint of how do we get cars there as fast as possible, and very little care to the safety of the community. And by that I mean the entire community. And roads can be built in such a way that they're safer. So we have a tremendous number of roads that were built back from the ages and communities that were built so that they are actually dangerous roads. They're dangerous by design. It's not the people on this call that design them. They are the ones that are trying to fix that. but it's a tremendous amount, and it doesn't change overnight. So you have to really do the re-engineering. Sometimes you can do things that are fast and easy and simple, like leading pedestrian intervals, where it's reprogramming a light, and that's something that can make that intersection a bit safer. Sometimes it takes breaking concrete and redesigning an entire street, which is not a cheap venture, but it needs to be done faster because we're losing too many pedestrians. Losing one is, I mean, you know, your family member, losing one family member to a traffic collision. How can you say that one is acceptable? And you know, just to have one loss, and we're losing hundreds, and it's the most vulnerable ones, and it's in the most vulnerable communities, the communities where they can't afford necessarily cars. You know, you're not seeing this in Brentwood. You're not seeing this in streets where there's communities where everyone's driving cars. The roads are designed safer. You're seeing this in places like South LA, and where the communities are more dependent on public transportation or walking or cycling, and they're more disproportionately affected. So it's an engineering problem. There's education is a factor, enforcement is a factor, but it's engineering. We can re-engineer these streets to make them safer, and we have to do it faster.
Lauren or Matthew, have you seen that that's a problem in lower income communities on your end?
Yes, we definitely have in unincorporated Los Angeles County. The majority of our, what Lauren referred to as a high injury network, LA County refers to it as collision concentration corridors. The majority of our collision concentration corridors are located in those underserved areas, the areas in which, you know, people like Damian mentioned, that they don't have the ability to drive. They utilize the roadway in a different manner. They walk more. They ride their bikes. They depend on that type of transportation. And so we do see the amount of collisions that occur in those areas.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to listen to what the executive director of Los Angeles Walks has to say about improving roadway safety.
At Los Angeles Walks, what we're doing to help with the road safety is to work with communities to help make our streets safer by design. Safety, number one, comes from how we design our communities, right? It's not just how people drive, but it's where people drive and the infrastructure in which we build for communities and people to drive. And so one way that we increase road safety is to make sure our communities are designed not just for cars, but for walking, for biking, and for other use.
So Matthew, back to you. LA Public Works is responsible for maintenance as well as improvement projects. Are there any projects from the past or currently that Public Works is doing to improve roadway safety?
Yes, we have a number of projects that are either in construction in planned phase or in concept right now. You know, there's all over the county, but with our Vision Zero program specifically, we're focusing on those areas where the data tells us where to go, and that is in those disadvantaged areas that we had talked about earlier. So yes, there are a number of projects, and we are trying to make them multi-benefit projects, in the sense that, you know, if our agency has a project that is focused on stormwater quality, for instance, that project gets routed around our agency, and my group gets to take a look at it, and we try to implement along with that water quality project, transportation enhancements, traffic safety enhancements, so that it's truly a multi-benefit project.
Thank you. Damian, have you heard about the road diet movement where people are trying to keep bike lanes and other measures out of their neighborhoods? What are your thoughts on this?
So road diet is a bit of a misnomer, and I just want to correct that terminology. It's used by people who are anti-bicycling, anti-pedestrian, who care more about how fast they can get to their Starbucks than they care about the safety of the roads. Mm-hmm. And really, to put it in perspective, really what it is we're looking at traffic calming measures. How do we prevent people from excessive speeding? How do we make sure that pedestrians and cyclists are protected from cars that are attempting to do 50 plus miles an hour down a residential road? And those that are so focused on how fast they can get to work and how fast they can get to their Starbucks and don't think about their community and the people that the very community they're driving through and how this affects that community, I have very little good things to say about them. Also, their arguments are really just incredibly flawed. And I've heard some of their arguments, and it really is a self-centered argument. And they have holes throughout all of them there of these reasonings of, well, if we have, less, just to give you how sort of nuts some of these arguments are. Of course, if you make the roads safer, you're going to have less people are going to be injured, and you're going to have less fatalities, and you're going to make that community safer. But one of their arguments is, well, if we have roads that are calmer and are safer, well, then, the ambulance might take a little bit longer there, a few seconds longer to get through. And even that is not even always true in that argument. And so you're saying we don't care about saving lives. We only care about that, maybe that 1 in a million time when an ambulance might go a bit slower. And would that make a difference or not? And that's just a nuts argument. You know what I mean? So you don't get me started, because this is a subject that I feel quite passionate about, as you can tell.
Yeah, thank you. So when we think of roadway safety, we tend to think about people dying in vehicles in particular. But according to LA Department of Transportation, like we said before, almost half of those killed on the roads are pedestrians or cyclists. So Lauren, I wanted to ask you, what is being done to keep pedestrians safe from your organization?
Yeah, I would say it has much to do with what Damian and Matthew have talked about. I would put those into sort of two general buckets: speed management and building infrastructure for pedestrians. So speed management is largely about redesigning our arterial streets, our major streets, so that cars are driving more slowly and are not reaching those excessive speeds. And just to give you a sense of why speed's so important to the traffic safety outcomes, if a person is hit traveling by a car traveling at 25 miles an hour, they have about a 90% chance of surviving that collision. But if they are hit by a car traveling at 40 miles per hour, they have about a 35% chance of surviving that collision. So just between 25 and 40 miles an hour, you have this dramatic increase in the risk to the pedestrian. And so keeping speeds closer to 25 miles an hour can have a tremendous impact on pedestrian safety outcomes. And so that's something that we at the Los Angeles Department of Transportation are certainly focused on doing. And, one of the ways that we can do that is actually through a road diet. When we reduce the number of lanes on a road that is overbuilt and carries excess capacity, we can overall create a calmer street where people are traveling at more manageable speeds. And then if we pair that with pedestrian infrastructure, so that means things like pedestrian islands, pedestrian beacons, so you push a button and cars see a flashing beacon. So pair that with a road that now has fewer lanes to cross, and you have a much safer environment for a pedestrian.
And was there any last thoughts?
I'd like to say that there's a tremendous amount of work that's needed to make our roads safer in Southern California. We're all aware of that. And it takes a lot of different pieces. The work that Lili's doing, in terms of education is vital. The re-engineering and things like that. I think really there needs to be more support and understanding, not only of how much work this takes, but the fact that it is vital. We're dealing with people's lives here. This is not a small problem. It's a huge problem. LA is the deadliest major city in the US for traffic collisions. It's the #1 killer of kids. This is not a light matter. So the more that people can understand and get educated on what it means to have safer streets, what that means not only in terms of lives saved, but also what things can be done in your neighborhood. And the more that they advocate for safer streets and they talk to their council members or their supervisors and they say, hey, I want safer streets, the faster all of this will actually roll. Mm-hmm. So I really implore anyone who's listening to this, get educated, learn about this subject, talk to other people about the need for safer streets and talk to them about the need to drive safer and talk to your officials and tell them this matters to you.
Thank you, Damian, for saying that, because I believe everybody has a small part of it, and we don't want to wait for someone to become an advocate just because you went to a tragedy, like it happened in Damian's and mine case, right? We have great people like Matthew and Laura, and thank you, because what you do, because as victims, we try to do what we can. We illustrate racing, the person that's doing it, especially, they know it's dangerous. They know they're risking their life. They know it's against the law. Right. So what can we do there but educate them? But what else can we do? What we're saying, infrastructure, right? And try to make this too safer in a way, like you're saying, so when they race, or they can't race, or they can't do this, right? Because unfortunately, when you have a rebellious people with that mentality, all you can do is educate and try to do something within our streets as well. So I appreciate what everybody's doing.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again so much to everyone for being here. You're watching On Point. We'll be right back.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
I'm heading out, man. You want to ride?
No, I got my car, but I actually really need to go to the bathroom.
Dude, are you okay?
I am definitely buzzed.
Yeah.
I think I will take this, and I will take that ride home.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings at 5:30. You can watch us on LA 36 and on Santa Clarita Valley Television. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Callie Raglin.